Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Bill Brownfield, and I am your opening act for today's presentation. And I will speak for a few minutes by way of a scene setter for what we are going to discuss as this event goes on. Today's event is kind of positioned between two elections. One election that occurred on the 28th of July, and a second election that occurred on the 5th of November. And I do want to set the scene for what those two events have produced, and perhaps open some discussion in terms of where we should go from here. Let's be realistic here. We're talking about Nicolas Maduro. The election did take place on the 28th of July. And when the polls closed, the Democratic opposition, which had observers at virtually every polling site in Venezuela, was able to produce the signed tallies, signed by the actual junta, the board that was running that each individual voting site, with the results of the election. And by about 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock that night, they were in a position to say that the opposition candidate, former retired diplomat, so therefore a very important person, Edmundo Gonzalez, had in fact won 67% of the vote, confirmed by 80% of the voting sites. So, ladies and gentlemen, what are the key dates that we're looking at right now? And I hope we will talk about in the course of the next 30 minutes or so. I suggest there are two that will bookend the discussion. One is January 10th, 2025. The second one is January 20th, 2025. And what are these two dates? They are the dates for the inauguration of the new president of Venezuela, January 10th, and the inauguration of the next president of the United States on January 20th. We have an excellent panel to discuss this matter. It's especially excellent since, as I learned about 5 minutes ago, I am joining the panel as well, although I intend to speak as little as I can possibly get away with. I will leave it to the distinguished moderator in terms of what they will discuss and how they get there. I hope, Dr. Molina, that we will be able to discuss issues such as is the proper response by the international community a hard response or a soft response? And finally, as I think through other things we might discuss, what about the idea of thumbing our nose at the distinguished gentleman down at Miraflores Palace in Caracas and pushing for a direct meeting that is made public and known to the world between, let's say, Donald J. Trump, the president-elect of Venezuela, and Maria Corina Machado, the head and leader of the Democratic opposition and sector of Venezuela. Those are some ideas that I have, but nope, it is Dr. Molina who will make the final decision. Over to you, Doña Maria.
Thank you, Ambassador. Thank you, everybody, for being here with us. Also to everybody that is joining us on streaming. We know that many of you are also watching us from your offices and home, and we appreciate your presence in this panel. Many of you know Ambassador Brownfield. He was very well known in my country, Colombia, not only because of his preparation and his very good advice and good ideas, but because of his charm. And he was also always a person that was a pleasure to interview because of his personality. We are also joined here today by Mr. Carlos Vecchio, Ambassador Carlos Vecchio. Many of you know him too. Ambassador Vecchio is former ambassador of Venezuela to the US. Mr. Vecchio, as Ms. Maria Corina Machado, was also detained for hidden for 108 days in Venezuela. 108 days. After that, he was exiled, and he has been here in the US, and he has been a very important part of this opposition in Venezuela, from Venezuela here in the United States. We are also with Ms. Ana Rosa Quintana. Ms. Ana Rosa Quintana is the Senior Policy Director for Vandenberg Coalition. She is, most recently, she served as the Staff Director for Western Hemisphere for House Foreign Affairs Committee Chairman Michael McCall. She's a Republican. She was the lead Republican advisor in the U.S. House of Representatives on U.S. policy towards Latin America and the Caribbean. So obviously a very high-level expert on this topic. And my name is Maria. I'm Maria Molina. I'm a reporter, correspondent in Washington for Univision Network and for La FM de RCN Colombia. Thank you very much for being with us. And Merry Christmas, Ambassador. Well, I want to start this panel by talking about an interview that I'm sure we all read from Maria Corina Machado recently in the pages of the New York Times. She's hidden, as you were, Ambassador, at some point. And from there, she said that this is a great opportunity that the president-elect Donald Trump has to have a foreign affair victory in a very, very short term, as she described. And she called Donald Trump to press more criminal charges, to reimpose sanctions, to put more pressure on Nicolás Maduro. And she says that Nicolás Maduro right now is weak, so that this is the moment when this strategy would work.
Yep. I mean, Maria, I do not understand how anyone in the world could argue that Nicolás Maduro today is weaker in a political sense than he was before the July 28th elections.
Mrs. Quintana, after January 20, Donald Trump is going to be in the White House. The Republican Party is going to have the majority of the Senate, the House. It's a very, very powerful Republican Party. How are you seeing that your colleagues, your fellows in the Republican Party are receiving these messages from Nicolás Maduro? And how do you think the Republican Party should handle this situation moving forward?
Sure. So, I think Ambassador Vecchio brought up something that I very much want to thank him for, and that's bringing up the issue of American hostages, because, again, frankly, that's not brought up enough. Americans are constantly bringing up the issue of Venezuelan political prisoners, so thank you, and I would encourage our other Venezuelan friends to advocate on their behalf as well. And I think, to answer your question, Maria, it's kind of dovetailing off the point that Carlos brought up. It's, I would not be concerned about the Trump administration falling into some sort of trap laid out by the Maduro regime.
Ambassador Brownfield and also Secretary Blinken yesterday stated that finally, that Edmundo Gonzalez was the winner of these elections. Why now? What effect does this have on this whole issue?
Yeah, I do agree. It took a very long time to get to this point, but that's water under the bridge now. The why now, I suppose, is because this makes the United States inevitably going to have to say on the 10th of January that Edmundo Gonzalez is now the constitutional president of Venezuela. My view is there's a better way to proceed, and I bet the distinguished lady whose face has just appeared on a screen to my left would agree with me, even though she may not be listening.
Well, you'll see her. She's Maria Corina Machado. She's called the Iron Lady. In that interview that I started this panel with, she was saying that she needs a hug. She hasn't seen anybody for a long time. Nobody knows where she is, but there she is fighting for democracy in her country. Ms. Maria Corina Machado, let us send you a big, respectful hug wherever you are. Welcome to this panel, and we're very happy to see you.
Thank you so much. I am thrilled to be sharing these moments with you. All of you are good friends of the Venezuelan cause for freedom and democracy, and very grateful to the Wilson Center, to the Iván Duque Center for Prosperity and Freedom. Of course, a pleasure to share these moments with our good friend, Ambassador William Bromfield. Thank you, Ana Rosa, Quintana, Carlos Vecchio, and of course, you, Maria, for your moderation. And I'm sure you have had a passionate discussion. I think we are living critical and decisive moments for Venezuela, and I'm convinced that we've never had an opportunity such as the one we're facing right now. And I say this because after 25 years of struggling against a tyranny that has gotten more and more destructive, I believe that we are in a point never reached before in which all interests of different stakeholders are aligned around a peaceful transition in Venezuela. And above this, or in addition to this, I think Maduro is in its weakest position ever. First of all, because they have totally lost any rest of legitimacy And this is something that they did have to care about. If not, they wouldn't have had 30 elections in over 30 elections in 25 years. But what happened on July 28th, under the rules of the tyranny, was something they never expected. We not only won by a landslide, 70-30, but we were able to prove that victory in less than 24 hours. So this is huge, and Maduro's reaction with unleashing this brutal campaign of terror and repression has only further sink them in terms of international isolation. Secondly, we've never had an opposition united or as united as the one we have right now. It goes beyond political parties. Different groups of civil society that have been joining before the primaries, after the primaries, and before the election, and even after the election. Third, we have a legitimate leadership that was elected on October 22nd of last year in the primary process, and of course, Edmundo González Urrutia, just recognized as president-elect by the U.S. government, and that we maintain, and I have to say this, a united team in terms of making this coalition move forward and grow. And I would say that in the international arena, we've seen a very wide coalition growing. Just in Latin America, you have from Gabriel Boric, Chile's president, to Javier Milei, supporting our cause, as it has been also a bipartisan cause in the US Congress. And the last issue I want to mention regarding the regime's unquestionable weakness and fragility is the more and more evident tensions, and I would say even fractures among the system that it's in power right now. And many of these are public and most are not, but this certainly reaches sectors that have been historically Maduro's biggest pillars of support. I'm talking about the armed forces, the judiciary system, and even corruption networks and frontmen that start to understand that this system is not sustainable. We'll be able to turn Venezuela, transform Venezuela from the criminal hub of the Americas into the energy hub of the Americas and a true ally of democratic societies. So this is a moment to act. We do have an opportunity. Less than 50 days, Edmundo González Urrutia should be sworn in as president, constitutional president of Venezuela. We have a mandate, we have the strength, we have the will of the people, and we need the support of the international community that understands that this is a unique opportunity that we cannot let pass. We will prevail, and I know that Venezuela will be a free country to which we will bring our kids back home. Thank you very much.
Well, hopefully the next time that we see you, Ms. Maria Corina Machado, is not there on Zoom. Hopefully we can have you in Washington at some point and democracy returns to your country. Thank you for being with us. I know we would like to talk about this topic for much longer. Unfortunately, the time is over, but I also think that by this point, there is enough evidence for all of us to agree that there was a winner in the elections in Venezuela, and it was not Nicolás Maduro. Hopefully, the international community has a reaction to this. Hopefully, the new administration, as Ms. Maria Corina Machado calls, can have enough actions to make a change. And of course, the Republican Party now has a great opportunity. Mrs. Quintana, you're inside there. I'm sure that this conversation is going on, and hopefully this will bring some change to the situation. We need to close this panel. Thank you very much, Ms. Ana Rosa Quintano, for being here with us. Mr. Carlos Vecchio, Ambassador of Venezuela, former ambassador, but always ambassador, as you know. And Mr. Ambassador, Mr. Bromfield. Thank you so much for being today with us at the Wilson Center, and thank you all for joining us, and thanks to the Wilson Center for this invitation. Yes.